I'm willing to bet most people under age 55 really aren't that familiar with the work of actor Jack Lemmon. At best, maybe from The Odd Couple, but they probably don't even remember that. So, Lemmon was the guest on Later with Bob Costas 33 years ago tonight, May 13th, 1992. And it was a two-parter. He's on the next night, too. This one, he talks about three great films. Mr. Roberts, The Days of Wine and Roses, which is his first major dramatic success instead of comedy roles, and then a wonderful film, The Apartment. So, any of you youngsters, I'll bet you these things are on those streaming services. If not, I think I have DVDs of them if you need them. Go on my eBay page.
We're in Los Angeles, and thanks for staying up later. Jack Lemmon is with us tonight for the first of two programs, and I guess this is one way to indicate his enduring appeal. He's received 8 Oscar nominations. Only 3 actors have surpassed that total, and their names are Tracy, Olivier, and Nicholson. But maybe more of an indication, exactly 2 Oscar nominations in each of 4 separate decades. In the 50s for Mr. Roberts and Some Like It Hot, in the 60s for The Apartment and Days of Wine and Roses, in the 70s for Save the Tiger and the China Syndrome, and in the 80s for Tribute and Missing. And still around and kicking and still working. Do you have, this is a hard question, I realize. Do you have any insight into that enduring appeal?
I think it's a combination of things. Some of it may sound self-serving, but I don't think it is, because above all, I think that there is an element of luck in there. In other words, there's an element of luck, as we know, in all phases of our industry, and of the entertainment industry. I don't care whether it's films, theater, or this or that, or whether we're doing this show or whatever. Somebody has to open the door for you. You better deliver when the door is closed. But nevertheless, somebody has to open the door, the right part at the right time, for instance, to kick you off. And I got a few of those breaks very, very early on. But I do think that overall, with a number of mistakes, but not too many, that I have been smart enough to have picked some things that have really worked. When I say really worked, I'm not talking about box office champions, because I think if you try to do a film or anything saying this is going to be a big hit, you're not going to be around too long. You really will not. You may be right once or twice, but you'll end up doing junk, and you'll end up not being taken very importantly. But there is a combination that I have been lucky to achieve in getting material that I felt was important and good on a professional level and on a social level at times, and that also worked, not just critically, but with the public, often enough.
Let's go back to your earlier point. What was the first of these opportunities, these doors opening that you were able to step through?
In film, they were looking for someone to play opposite Judy Holliday in a film called It Should Happen to You. Bang, they saw me and asked me to test. I was a snooty New York actor. Oh, God, I'd rather be out of work at the old Walgreens drugstore than the thought of being in films. I mean, that was for pretty curly-haired young boys, you know, but not for serious actors. Live TV, yes. Theater, yes, because you were on, and it was now, you know. Yet, paradoxically, I had great respect for certain people in film. Spencer Tracy, Freddie March, Jean-Louis Barrault, of all people, and Robert Donat. These people always seemed to do something as if it was happening for the very first time, you know, to me. And I thought that was remarkable in film, because I knew that, I didn't know anything about film, but I knew that you didn't do it just once. Anyway, they were looking for someone to play opposite Judy Holliday, who was born yesterday, written by Garson Kanin. You want to talk about somebody opening a door, and directed by George Cukor, who had a great reputation. And all these people were from the theater and had then gone into film. Great writer, great director, great actress. So I tested for it, I got it. Boom. There we are. I'm a leading man in my very first film, and it's 1953. I'm in my 20s. Then about my third or fourth film is Mr. Roberts. Well, man, that's an element of luck. That's not because I'm some great acting genius. There is more. Oh, a terrific story. Have you got an hour or two?
Well, sure.
Anyhow, God, I wish I could edit myself while I. It's awful. I go 20 minutes on hello. Anyway, there was a wonderful old guy named Myron McCormick, who was a very well-known character actor in the theater and highly respected. And Myron I knew, and he was a family friend also, and he befriended me. And when I first came down into New York in the 40s, mid and late 40s, he would be an ear that I could talk to, and that he would give me advice and try to get me in to see an agent or whatever. Anyhow, years went by. I did Mr. Roberts. Now I'm back in New York on a visit. And I'm so full of myself I can't see straight, but I didn't realize it. And we're walking down the street, and for about 5 blocks, apparently, all I'm doing is talking about me and how I played Ensign Pulver, and working with Fonda and Cagney and Bill Powell and all of the guys, and all of this and that and so forth. And Myron isn't saying a word, and we're walking along, and finally he just stops dead in the middle of Times Square. He took me by the arm, and he said, "Jack," he said, "you haven't shut up about yourself and your performance for the last 5 blocks. He said, "I want to point out something to you." He says, "We're in the theater district, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Take a long look around you." I said, "Okay." I looked around. He says, "You may not know it, but you have just looked past at least 6 young actors that could have done it just as well. But you got it. Don't forget it." I never forgot it. And I never will.
Mr. Roberts is your first Academy Award nomination, right?
Yeah.
And you win for Best Supporting Actor for Ensign Pulver. Now, at this point, you've been in a few films. You have a certain level of self-confidence. On the other hand, you're still a young guy, and your co-stars are James Cagney and Henry Fonda, among others. Intimidating or not?
Oh, yeah. Intimidating and thrilling. You know, it's funny, if there were a part that anyone would ask me that I ever wanted to play at that point in my life, I would not have said Romeo, I would not have said Hamlet or anything. I would have said Ensign Pulver. Every young actor that ever did any comedy wanted that part. It was just a brilliant part.
No, sir, this is not bunk!
In a way, kind of an irony with Ensign Pulver at that stage of your own career, because you've got talent, you have a certain technique already developed, but as we said, you're opposite Fonda, you're opposite Cagney, whomever else. And there's something of Ensign Pulver in that. That cockiness and that hyperactivity is probably a way of disguising how desperately he wants the approval,
no question,
especially of the Henry Fonda guy.
No question. And I think that when Ford was casting the part, that's a quality that he felt. Because when I got the part, I was, honest to God, I was testing as an 80-year-old man in another film that they just tested me for fun, a part of a guy who goes from in his 20s up to 80. So they tested me only as an old man, and it was a picture that John Ford was directing prior to this. Tyrone Power played the part, not me, and he never would look at my test. Later on, he happened to see the test at the end of his daily rushes on this other film, The Long Gray Line, and he saw me only as an 80-year-old man. And it just hit me now why he might have said this. You nailed something that never occurred to me, was what might be within me personally that would also be applicable to Pulver. Because I was playing an 80-year-old man as best I could, makeup and all. They spent 2 weeks building pieces and all of that. And at the end of it, he said, "Who the hell is that?" And one of the guys said, "I don't know why they put this on, why it was on the end of your rushes." He said, "But that's a young guy named Jack Lemmon who just did a film with Judy Holliday. He's under contract here at the thing." Ford then said, and I was told, "Well, I'll tell you something, he's a lousy old man, but he would make a very good Pulver." Now that's from seeing me as an 80-year-old man. You want to talk about a crazy Hollywood story. And I never even tested for the part. He gave it to me from that test. So it must be something he saw, even though I'm playing an 80-year-old man, some quality of that energetic insecurity, whatever, that he saw coming through that would fit for Pova. I think you're right. I never thought of that.
What do you really...
I think The Apartment is similar to Mr. Roberts in this respect. There's a dramatic quality to it, but comedy within the drama, which is where you operate best, because you're not a comedian by definition.
That's the idea, for me, that's the ideal thing to find as far as material goes, is a combination of drama and comedy. I can't think of any in the ones that I've been lucky enough to find over the years that were better or as good a blend of comedy, as legitimately right as that blend of comedy and drama that Billy achieved in that. But he won Best Picture, Best Writer, Best Director. So, and at the time it was being made, people, again, like with Some Like It Hot, thought Billy was a little nuts. Just even a couple of years before, and that was what, let's see, 1959, it was about 1960, 61. They said you couldn't make this film. They wouldn't, the studios wouldn't do the film because Billy was making great social comment on a certain segment of American businessmen, you know, and illicit affairs going on, or this and that. So we were getting into an area that nowadays would be nothing, you know, of course. But then, 60, 70, 80, 30 years, am I that old? 30 years ago, you know, that was considered, wow.
Shortly after The Apartment comes The Days of Wine and Roses.
Yeah.
And in a way, I think this was a certification at that point in your career that you could play a dramatic role. People forget that in the early part of the movie, there's a lot of comedy and there are a lot of light moments, but what sticks in the mind is the scene of you shaking with the DTs and you know, in the sanitarium, wherever they put you. You know, that's the enduring image.
Yeah.
How important was it for you in your career?
Oh, very, very, very important. We, on several levels, not only finally getting a hell of a part that was a dramatic part, because they tend to label you in this industry, and they did then a lot more than now. You know, I was only in the business a couple of years when I'd pick up the trades and I'd say, Paramount says they have a young Jack Lemmon. I'm in my 20s. I've done about 5 pictures, and Paramount's got a young Jack Lemmon. What is a Jack Lemmon? That's what disturbed me. What is a Jack Lemmon? They're already associating me purely with comedy. There's a label on my toe, you see, and it says comedy only, etc. So it was important from that point of view, and just as briefly as possible, it was important personally on another. It taught me something. I had no fear that I could play drama. However, that was a heck of a part, and a pretty deep one. You know, it might as well be grabbing Hamlet or something or other as far as I was concerned. Nobody would touch it for a year and a half. Blake Edwards and I were both known primarily for comedy. Blake Edwards, who wrote and directed, but primarily comedy. And the studios all said, it's a great script, but it's downbeat. Who could, geez, these 2 young people and they're drunks. There's no happy ending. Why don't you do a comedy? If you and Blake want to do a comedy, any comedy, we'll do that. Don't do this thing. Don't do this thing. So we gave up after a while. Over a year had gone by, and Marty Manulis could not sell it. He was the producer. And Lee Remick and I, for the actors, we all gave up. And I felt a sudden sense of relief. I thought, well, that's strange. Why do I feel it? And then I analyzed it correctly, for once. You were afraid. You're relieved, in a way, that you don't have to try to play this because you were afraid of failing, of not getting enough of that character, of being unable. Not because it was a drama, but because it was such a heavy part. There was so much to that part. And once I realized I was going to live with that, I was not very happy. And then Jack Warner said, okay, I'll do it. And I said, good, let's go. But it taught me a lesson, and that is that failure, because I've failed too, many times, failure, I'll exaggerate slightly, failure will never hurt you, but the fear of failure, it'll kill you, because you'll never try things. You'll never find out. You'll never take the chance to find out what you might be able to do. You'll end up, with a very narrow range. Now, some actors like that. They want to do that. And their range is not that narrow, you know. And that's fine. Don't mean that critically. But it is not what I wanted to try to do. And it's true. I have failed, and it has never put me out of the business or stopped me from getting jobs. And by doing parts that I have been afraid I might not be able to do, those are the ones that most people remember.
Had done Lost Weekend, but by and large, the serious treatment of the topic of alcoholism it hadn't been done that often in Hollywood. No. Did you worry that some of this might have been too over the top? The scene in the greenhouse, obviously it works, but there wasn't that much precedent for it. He's going nuts, then he's in a straitjacket. I mean, a lot of this stuff, there wasn't any precedent for it.
Right. No, I didn't worry about it. From that point of view, I felt that if we did the scenes legitimately and correctly, that people would buy them. In the same sense that if I was playing a nut in a nut house and there was some wild scenes with crazy people going around, if that's what really happened, okay, you do it. And if you do it correctly, then people will say, oh, that's what it's like, rather than I don't believe it. Mm-hmm. I knew all of that stuff because in researching this thing, I went to AA meetings. We went to the drunk tanks, Lee and I. Man, it was not very pleasant. In the middle of the night with the old Lincoln Heights jail. It's no longer here, I don't think. I think it was called the Lincoln Heights jail, whatever. Into the drunk tanks and the dry out tanks and seeing these people strapped down and having the DTs and going through an in-straight jacket. All the stuff that I did, I saw that stuff happen.
Interesting thing about this, especially in the context of the times, early 60s, is the ambivalent ending. You expected, the first time you saw it, you expected that at least things would all work out well in the end, and they worked out halfway well in the end.
Yeah. With one of them still sober, because I won't go back to drink again just because she will. But, when Jack Warner, when everybody had said, gee, there's no happy ending, and nobody would touch it, and Warner finally said, okay, I'll do it. Thank God he did. He did tack on one little addenda, a proviso. He says, but I want a happy ending. Yeah. He said she's going to go with him when she sees that little baby and comes back to the apartment at the end. It's the kiss and the hug and the three of you, and we're going to march off into the setting sun, hand in hand, whatever here. Mm-hmm. It's got to be a happy ending. We all immediately, Marty Manulis, Blake, me, Lee, we said, you got it. Oh, boy. We had no intention of changing that script. And again, I mentioned earlier, you never shoot the last scene last. We did shoot the last scene last. And I then, it was Lee's idea, I then jumped the plane, and only my agent knew where I was going. And I went to Paris, to a little hotel on the left bank of Paris, and to London, and didn't tell anybody where I was. So Warner couldn't get me to reshoot, because he would have. He couldn't do it alone with Lee. And Blake said, I don't know where he is. I don't know. And they didn't. I did not let them know, so they were guilt-free. Nobody knew. And then finally, after about 3 weeks, he said, okay.
Take care of yourself.
It was honest on 2 counts. One, apparently your character has conquered it, while the wife, Lee Remick, is still wandering off to who knows what fate. But, as everyone now knows, but might not have been as clearly perceived by most people 30 years ago, you never really beat it. No. So, as he stands in the window, watching this heart-wrenching scene, watching the woman he loves walk down the street and not knowing how this is going to come out, there's the marquee from a bar flashing with the reminder that seems obvious now, but it was a big deal then, that even this guy never beats this.
To an alcoholic, it is there. It's available constantly. And if you become a total alcoholic, then that's it. Just one drink, and you're probably right back on it.
Category of showbiz conventions. I'm supposed to say, will you come back for another show? And you're supposed to say yes.
Absolutely, if you'll pull yourself together, yes.
See you later.
Thanks for watching Cleveland Live Music. It's awfully bright out here. I'd click on another one of my videos. Quit looking into the sun. Your mother told you not to do that. Please hit the subscribe button. And if you want to support the channel more, there's GoFundMe and Patreon information in the video descriptions. Ooh, ooh!